and welcome to episode number 11 of the Knighted Ones podcast. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, which, Trey, you're going to have to get your ring out here to show the audience at some point, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze and talking UCF sports. If you notice, this week I have my collar popped because we got a dub. It's been a long time, 5 weeks of no collars being popped. I feel like an SMU alum right now, but that's okay. We won, so I'll take it. I'm going to go ahead and bring the guys in. I missed last week, but they did a great job in my absence, and they picked against UCF on my behalf, so I don't know. Maybe I'll let them start picking from now on because we won. Not really. So first up, we're going to bring Alan to the stage. Welcome back, Alan.
What's going on, Roger?
Happy to be home. Happy to be back on the show. Thank you so much for hosting last week. I appreciate it. You did a great job. You figured out all the buttons and the banners and still managed to be coherent. So better than I usually do.
Go Knights.
Go Knights, charge on. All right. And as always, let's bring back Trey Neal.
Gentlemen, what's up? What's up?
Hey, it's a dub. It's a dub. Much better vibes this week than in weeks past. By the way, I'm serious. You're going to have to break out the natty ring. I do have a picture of my son with one on, but we need to see the real deal there. I'm assuming you actually went back and picked it up before you went to Nebraska, right?
Oh, they gave it to us. It was that spring, in the spring game that year.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just making sure you have some bling to show.
Absolutely.
All right. So in honor of all of that and this dub and it being Cincinnati this week, the Bearkittens, as we like to call them, or at least I do, I wore my Natty Champions shirt because I had to get all the feels this week to enjoy this dub. And let's get started. And as always, we start with text talk. These are things that we talk about during the game that are in our text. So, Alan, why don't we start with you this week?
Okay. I had one from Rob that was UCF defensive MVP Emory Jones because obviously he didn't have a good game and usually doesn't have a good game. And that's the second time we've beaten him here at UCF, obviously when he was at Florida. And the other one was, did I just watch the best defensive series of the game for UCF? And I followed up with maybe the season because there was a couple of series there where the defense actually did look pretty good. So those were my two text talks. Yeah,
we got pressure, and that was good. That D-line showed up and showed out the way that we expected them to. And, you know, as we get into the game, one of those questions we might want to ask, is that because this was a G5 line or a P5 line? So that's, I think, a question we kind of want to explore. All right, Trey Neal, what did you have this week on your text talk?
So my text talks, I had Josh said, love that fake. I think it was when we ran the fake punt. I agree. I think that was a great call. Again, I never have a problem with the trick.
Hold on. You're okay with a trick play?
Well, I think that one was planned out. Like the way they were waiting on a look for it. So like, to me, I like those kind of trick plays where, you know, it's planned out. You're waiting for a specific look to get, and that's when you call it, you know? So I think that was good. And then obviously Allen at the end, losing streak over again. Nothing's better than getting a win. You know, we can nitpick and stuff about it when we get a little bit later. But again, as long as we get the dub, man, there's not much to complain about.
A dub is a dub, man. And I will certainly take that over a 5-game, yes, count them, 5-game losing streak that hasn't happened at UCF for a very long time. And before we get into the game, I would be remiss not to mention and send our thoughts to Josh and his family. Unfortunately, he is out this week with a family emergency, and he wanted to be here, but obviously family always comes first. And so, you know, our thoughts with him and his family, and we appreciate him, and we'll miss him this week. and hopefully we'll get him back soon. So, Josh, pouring one out for you. Not literally, because it would end up on my desk. But let's go ahead and get back to the good vibes and talk about the Week 10 Bearkitten Scat. So, as you know, I try to become, do dad jokes in my titles here. I've got a really good one for Texas Tech. So, those of you that have followed Texas Tech at all or like GIFs, you'll understand it. So, I'm kind of drum rolling it for next week. But this week, we're going to talk about the Bearkittens. So, one of the things I wanted to start off with, there's been a lot of noise about this being the first Big 12 win and whether this really is or should be considered our first Big 12 win, considering it's against our former brethren in the American. It's a good thing because we had a little bit of a rivalry going with the Bearkittens from Cincinnati. And with this win, we took the lead in the series. So that's super exciting. But I'd like to start with, what do you guys think about all those people that are saying this really doesn't count? Or does it feel like it counts less because this wasn't part of the LO8 or leftover 8 or hateful 8 or acronym that you want to put in there for the win? So Trey Neal, is this a true Big 12 win, and should it be considered that?
I mean, technically, yes, it is, because it's conference play and we're in the.
All right, let's stop it there. He said technically yes, because I know there's a but coming after that. What he started with technically yes.
Yeah, I mean, but just realistically speaking, we're one of the newcomers, so it's kind of a similar playing ground in a sense. Just from, again, like the leftover 8, hateful 8, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't one of those teams. So it kind of has that feeling of, what's the difference between us playing in the AAC and the Big 12 getting this win? Not really much. But on the bright side, again, it is technically a Big 12 win. But I wouldn't, I wasn't really. Of course, I was happy to break our snide. We were losing 5 straight, but I think we should beat the teams. I think we should be the best of the newcomers. We should be the best team, in my opinion. So, it's a good win, but, that's about it for me. Just, it was a good win. I think, once we get into the actual game, we can expand a little bit. But
we, other than BYU, we play the other 2 newcomers, right? So we'll at least have an opportunity to say we're the best.
Yep.
Of 3. So there'll be Houston, Cincinnati, obviously we knocked down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still an opportunity to do that. And more importantly, there's a chance for us to go bowling still this year. This was a big game for that, as to whether we had the chance to actually do that or not. I think a lot of people were questioning that after last week's results. So, Alan, before we get into that, what do you think? Is this a true Big 12 win? Does this count, or is this an asterisk, as I like to say all the time?
In my mind, it is an asterisk. From a historical perspective or from a factual perspective, like, yes, it's a Big 12 win, but from an emotional kind of like morally perspective, like I don't count it. I mean, we beat someone that we've already beat 4 times that was in the last conference with us. And when you talk about Houston and BYU, 2 of the newcomers already having a win over one of the leftover 8 programs. I don't want to be, just us and Cincy being the only teams that don't beat a leftover 8 program. So no, I feel like when we look back in history, when we remember what our first Big 12 win, to me, it's going to go more towards the first true Big 12 team we beat. So in my mind, no, I don't count it. I mean, we beat a team we've played a bunch of times and we've beaten before. It was, you could tell it was more on equal footing playing against them. So for me I really think to get, that noise off of our back is you got to beat one of the leftover 8 teams. I don't think it's gonna feel a lot different in my mind. The feeling of beating Cincinnati was just pure relief of ending the losing streak. It didn't feel like we achieved that major milestone of getting our first Big 12 win from my perspective, and just the overall like vibe and feeling. So if we can either beat Oklahoma State or Texas Tech, then I'll be like, we did it. We finally got our first Big 12 win. But until then, it just feels like we beat an AAC team. And, 5-6 years down the road, if UCF and Cincy are killing it, different story. But this year, look, we beat a 2-7 team that also doesn't have a Big 12 win at all yet. So I think, other than ending the losing streak, no, it does not feel like our first true Big 12 win yet.
So what if we don't beat Texas Tech or OSU?
Then I guess we're waiting until next year.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, it's gonna feel like, like it doesn't feel like we belong yet, in a sense. Like it's almost just like, good job.
We beat a 2-7 team that, it's just, just doesn't.
Yeah.
Listen, in our defense, normally Kansas is 2-7, and they've just had a wild hair up their butt the last 2 years for us to join the league.
I'll take any win against any of the Big 12, like Baylor, for example. They're the worst leftover 8 team record wise. I would have been extremely happy if we had held on and beat them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think like at the beginning of the year, realistically, if we would have been a middle of the pack Big 12 team, a couple of, beat the guys that are new and then beat a couple of the teams that were leftover 8, I think we could have won a couple of those games anyway. I think that was really the goal. That was the expectation. It wasn't to dominate the conference, obviously wishful thinking, that's what we wanted, but realistically it was kind of be in that middle team our first year. So again, until we get that win, we're really, if we don't beat one of these leftover 8, we're going to be a bottom half team, only beating the guys that we just came with. So I think, again, it's more so to feel like we belong in the conference, feel like we can be competitive in the conference.
Yeah.
So I'll say this, we could definitely still be a middle of the pack Big 12 team, because we're still a Big 12 team, as is everybody else. So no matter what happens, and that really counts for the out of conference too, we're still a Big 12 team. So for me, I guess, I think there is a difference between feeling for us versus other people. And here's the reason why I say that. For UCF fans, we've spent ages climbing the mountaintop, right? And we finally got here. And now that we're at the mountaintop, went into the season, barring injuries and a few hundred football angered God moments where we're bouncing footballs off of people's feet, defenders, and doing all kinds of crazy things. We would have already had that in Baylor. I mean, we should have beaten Baylor. Let's just be honest. Like, it's unfathomable to me. Like, I don't understand how that happened. Like, literally don't understand how that happened. However, that being said, I think Alan has a valid point that it won't matter 6 years from now, but right now, we're looking for validation for that climb. This fan base has been looking for validation for a long time, and we got to the P5, so that was partial validation. That turned into the P4, which is even more validation because now you've eliminated an entire conference. And I think that, for us and for our own fandom to validate ourselves, we need to get that P5 win. But it's a feeling.
But I mean, like you're saying, I think just the way our trajectory has gone, even the last 10 years, I don't think us as UCF fans want to be a middle of the pack P5 team. Like, the goal does not stop here. Like, we're in the
nor should we be.
Yeah.
Nor should we be.
Yeah,
we have more skilled talent than what a lot of these P5 teams have.
Yeah, exactly.
What they have is depth that we don't.
Yep. And I think that's where, like, the bar, we haven't reached where we want to reach as a program, in my opinion. Not at least from the goals that we set when I was playing, or what we wanted the program to be. This is just another stepping stone. I don't think we want to be a Vandy or, a Mississippi State. Those kind of teams that are just in the Power 5 and just sit here and collect the check and,
we're not going to be
average. No, I know.
no matter what any AD who's sitting does, whether it's Terry Mohajir or anybody else, the fan base and the program and the university will not allow us to be mediocre.
Yeah. And
period.
I think that's the thing. Like, I think that's where getting that actual conference win matters. Like, not beating the newcomers. I think that's where finishing middle of the pack year one, because you can kind of build, like, it's something to build towards, something to be proud of in a sense. Like, in my opinion, at least, it's something to be proud of to say we've won a couple of the Big 12 games, or, you know, against these leftover teams. And we had a good first year, because you can build on that as a threat, just as what we want to be in a program, which is, again, the top 10 program in the country. That's what.
Yeah, and I think, like, you make a good point. It's like, it's kind of like a pride thing. Like, you want to get that first true Big 12 and the belonging part. For me, we're not even talking about the future. Yeah, of course, UCF should never settle for middle of the pack. We're just talking about right now and answering that one question that Roger asked is, does it feel like a true Power 5 win? And it doesn't. And when you a true Big 12 win. And when you compare it also to, like, other teams that have made this jump, for example, Utah and TCU, their first year in their new respective conferences, they went 4-5 in the conference and beat teams that were, you know, pre-existing. So, you know, they were middle of the pack and got 4 true wins. So, you know, I'm looking for recent comparisons, and you'd hope that, you know, when I looked at the beginning of this year, my goals were to be bowl eligible, to have the best record of the new 4, and then get at least 2 or 3 wins against, you know, leftover 8 teams. So for me, it's been very disappointing to not have one of those yet. So Cincinnati, like, I was already circling that as a win before the season started. So for me, it's like, okay, we just did what we already thought we were going to do. I want to get some wins against some Big 12 teams.
So I'll say all of those things are still in front of us.
It's possible.
No, like, you literally, every single one of those things that you mentioned are still in front of us.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's possible, right? I just don't know if it's going to happen, but it's definitely possible for sure.
Yep. So I think bowl eligibility has a better shot, but we do have to beat OSU or Texas Tech. Yeah. And I think it's Texas Tech, to be honest. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. All right, so getting away from questioning our own wins, let's go ahead and transition to the actual game. So let's talk about it. Like we were finally able to close out a game, right? We took the victory formation. We took the knee. What do you guys think about this team? I know from Gus's press conference, he talked a lot about, you know, they came out hand in hand, arms interlocked. You know, and we've made a big stink, and Trey, you specifically, about, you know, the need for this team to be more on the sidelines, to be more of a team on the sidelines. And, you know, you made the very astute observation that, hey, these guys are just sitting around unless the coach comes and yells at them or tries to motivate them. They're just sitting, you know, they're going and they're sitting down. And, you know, one of the things we talked about was John Rice's ability to motivate the team. And, you know, a lot of comparisons are made to Mackenzie Milton, and that will always happen because he was so successful. The difference between John Rice Plumlee and Mackenzie Milton is, you know, obviously from there's a talent gap there. I mean, Mackenzie Milton is just Mackenzie Milton. That's all there is. JRP is not that guy. However, what JRP does well is he is, you know, statistically, and I hate to say statistically because it sounds like, you know, like what you were saying earlier when you were talking about it, but right, technically, you know, it sounds like one of those terms. He's statistically a very good quarterback. He's also been hobbled. And so when you go on a losing streak and your quarterback isn't able to physically or otherwise, talent-wise aside, make those, you know, those plays because his physical attributes are taken away to you know, lead to the win, it takes away from your ability to motivate, especially when folks are on the sidelines and nobody else is stepping up. So JRP had a disadvantage, not only physically, but also in his ability to lead, because it just sounds like noise after a while. If the rest of the guys don't get up and join in that noise, right? If they're not joining in and trying to motivate the team. So Gus said, one of the things he said, and he called out the team, which Trey, we've talked about, is it shouldn't take the coaches to stand up and go walk over to motivate the team. They need to be motivating each other and picking each other up. And that's why they came out arm in arm, and they credited it for the win. Did you see a difference? Was that the reason why the fourth quarter win happened? I think part of it too is JRP scrambles. How much of that was JRP, just saying, screw it, I'm not going to, being the old JRP, I'm not going to, be timid on my leg, and I'm going to go and get and pick up these first downs that we need to keep this drive going?
I mean, realistically, to me, I don't think. I think this is a game we should have won. I wasn't necessarily moved in a sense because, again, kind of going back to what we talked about the first time. This is Cincinnati. We played Cincinnati the last 5-8 years. This isn't a team where, okay, let's lock arms and do it. Like, this is what you guys are supposed to do. Like, and the thing that I don't want to take away from it, because again, I think they're taking the right step, especially from what I saw, previously. I think, locking arms and things like that. But again, to me, that doesn't show what a team is. That never showed us, at least when I played, us locking arms and things like that isn't what made us tight. That's not what made us brothers. It's not what made us close. That's not what it was. It was everything from the summer. It was everything from the spring. It was doing the program. It was so hanging out with each other all the time outside. It was so much more to that.
Was it barbecues?
Yeah, we used to barbecue out, man.
I know. There's a joke. There's a joke in there because Mackenzie Milton, he went to Hawaii and took an extended leave from the team. And then there was a certain someone who was a quarterback at the time who held a barbecue for the team. And then
even outside of that, I think we, as a team, we probably had 3 or 4 barbecues throughout the year. We threw, of course, we threw parties. We threw Halloween parties every year. We threw, spring break thing, like just things outside of just football and talking ball. We hung out with each other almost every Thursday. We went bowling, like things like that. We went bowling. It was like $1 to get in and bowl. All of us would go and do it. Things like that is what builds like the camaraderie. And the reason I was upset last week about it was because, again, guys aren't saying anything. The only person, again, like you mentioned, Roger, was JRP, but he's hobbled. And it's not even a problem that JRP is thinking. The problem was there's nobody else speaking. Looking back at all the great teams I played on, even like when I didn't play, like my freshman year, there were a lot of vocal leaders, but everybody was talking all the time. Some people are rah-rah guys. Some people are just keep everybody calm. Like, let's talk.
Well, you guys also had the leadership council. I'm not sure if this team had that.
And that was a program to help groom leaders. Because,
is that a freeze? That was a freeze.
I had a freeze.
Did I freeze?
Yes, you did. And now you're talking slow, like you've been tipsy or
Oh.
something. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but like we had programs to groom leaders. Like my junior and senior year, we had young guys in there to teach them, to let them see, like, hey, this is what we talk about, what we're working. Because you have to keep the program doesn't end when the seniors leave. It shouldn't, at least. It should be continuing to develop, continuing to grow. And again, we had guys like Titus Davis, Jemias Pittman, Shaquem Griffin, obviously, who are rah-rah guys on defense. And offensively, it would be Wyatt. It wasn't even really McKenzie as far as a rah-rah guy when he was young.
Well, I think McKenzie, the problem for McKenzie, and I hate to say this way, and I don't want to make this too much about that team, but the problem for McKenzie was he lost the locker room after he cleaned out his locker. He had to earn his way back in to be able to be that person. At least that's what some of the other guys had said. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, again,
I don't know. What do you think? Did you guys feel that?
So there was a divide in the locker room because, again, it does suck when a guy misses all of that. Again, I just spoke to, those summers and that spring going through the development. It does suck when a guy misses all that. But again, me personally, listen, man, football is football is just football. If you have things you're dealing with off the field, whether it's family, whether it's with you, anything, to me, I'm always, take care of what you got to take care of. Some people don't see it that way, and that's completely fine. But
bro, he was dealing with getting booed off the field and being homesick.
That's and people don't understand. Mackenzie Milton is from Hawaii. He was legitimately halfway across the globe for him. That's I'm from Georgia and I was homesick. I couldn't imagine being, 4 hours to LA and another 4 or 5 hours to Hawaii. Like, that's crazy. And you don't see your parents ever really.
And that's why his mom moved out.
Yeah, like, it's so much. So again, I wasn't really hard on it. But again, Mackenzie, the thing that was beautiful about him, like, he knew that he couldn't come in and just be a rah-rah guy. He was a guy that, listen, guys, I have to show you that I care. I have to show you that I work. And he did it to a T. He didn't come in trying to make bosses, trying to be a boss, do all these things. He earned our respect back. And that's what you have to do, because everybody can't be a chief. They always say we need more Indians, not enough chiefs. I wasn't even consider myself a rah-rah guy. I was just the guy, hey, keep everybody sane, make sure we're talking about adjustments on the side. I mean, people used to tell me to shut up because I'd be talking all the time. But like, that was my role, was to keep everybody engaged. There's no mental lapses. We need to be on point all the time. And I just didn't see that enough. But back to the original question, I don't think it was, to me, this wasn't the game to be like, yeah, look at our team being that. But because they could have not done that, and I still think they beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not a good football team.
You act like Cincinnati's the red Yukon or something. I don't know, man.
I don't think they're a good football team. Just me personally, I didn't think they were that great.
Let's ask that question, because Cincinnati was in a ton of one-score games.
Yeah,
like a ton of them. They also lost a bunch of people, and they were also running thin. But I mean, their coach, their quarterback, their a lot of their defensive players, and then number 10, inexplicably, whatever he did, supposedly like punched one of our players and then grazed the referee and got ejected. Like,
that's all that. But again, I don't think they were going to be a great team. Like Alan said, I think looking at the beginning of the season, we circled this game as a win with what we had coming back with the guys we had on our team.
This win in Trey Neal's mind is an asterisk.
No, it's not an asterisk, but it's just to the sense of,
doesn't feel like
it's just it feels good, because we broke the snide. But again, I don't really take anything from it, because once we get into, because again, in the game, the same issues I saw week 1, week 3, week 7, this week, I still saw them. But the reason we won is because Cincinnati's not good. Like, in my opinion,
we didn't turn the ball over.
Oh, but I mean, again, if you look at, we could not stop the run again to save our life. Luckily, they couldn't either, and RJ Harvey was going crazy. And then at the end of the game, so did JRP. Like, when you're playing bad teams, you can kind of get away from flaws that you have. That's kind of the saying, like, when you're winning, you kind of ignore what the issues you really have. I think that's what Oklahoma's realizing too. I think we kind of exposed the flaw to them, because they've lost every game. They've lost both of these last 2 games to teams like that.
Oklahoma won a lot of games coming from behind. They are not as good as they think they are.
Yeah.
But I think we also played up to Oklahoma.
We did. But like, if you look at the 2 teams that, when we're going to get into Oklahoma State, those teams run the crap out of the ball, man. And they can do it well. Kansas is very good.
Here's the crazy thing. The Big 12 has always been known as an air raid, like, throw it all over the yard league. And we come into the league and everybody's pounding the freaking rock. And it's like we said before the Oklahoma game, Oklahoma's a good matchup because our secondary is good and we've got D-line that can get pressure on them.
Yep.
And when, they're trying to throw the ball and our secondary does its job, the D-line can get there. Where we run in, and even in this game, without going into the detail too much, to your point about the same problems, what did we say and I feel like a broken record, is the edges, right? Yeah. You saw guys leaning towards the inside or ends. Tremont did it a few times. Seliskar was constantly doing it. If they just maintain their assignment and maintain the edge, a lot of those runs that you're talking about would not have happened. I mean, they just cheated inside, and then when they cheated inside, they got killed with the block.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're being taught that. I have no idea. If they're being taught that, then they're doing right. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I would always, just with what our issues are, just funnel it. But I mean, again, back to the original.
Well, you can't do that if the linebackers are offset to the left. If you watch the linebackers, now we've done some different things, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail. We've done some different things with the linebackers. They're shifting to one side, right? Mm-hmm. So whether we have two and then one coming down or dropping back in coverage, or you know, in a 3-point stance or whatever, those linebackers are shifted and their responsibilities are shifted to either the left or the right. That means the other end has to maintain the edge because he's got no help. It's like having a corner that's in single high and the safety, you know, goes to one side of the field. Mm-hmm. You got to be aware of what you're in and understand how you have to block. Even if it looks like there's a run inside in between the tackles, you have to be aware enough that you know that you have to maintain that edge because you've got no help. Yeah. So,
but like you, so I guess we kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah, I know.
But just realistically, I don't think this would be the barometer. Sure, is it great that, you know, the guys, they came out and then they were showing, you know, brothers in arms, things like that. Of course, that's great because it's better than not doing it. But again, it shouldn't take you 9 weeks, in my opinion, to show that you're together. It shouldn't take you. I mean, I said it last week. You know, all of this talking about we're going to see what we're made up of. You know, this, that, and the third. We already know what this team is. You know, realistically, we do. Is it great we beat Cincinnati in a tough, close game? Sure, but again, that's why I said Cincinnati's not good. I don't think they really were that good. If we would have lost, like I said in the group chat, if we lose this game, I'm not watching any more of these games because there's no excuse for us to lose this game, in my opinion.
So then you have Gerard Baker after the game tweeting about paying people, otherwise NIL is going to lose us players. So 100% agree with that. All right, Alan, sorry you had to listen to us rant for a little while. What do you think?
I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what Trey said. I don't think we played particularly well. I just think that Cincinnati is that bad. Like you could just see, like, if we would have played this way against any of the other teams we faced this year in the Big 12, I think we probably end up with a loss, probably a narrow loss, but we still would have lost. Like Emory Jones was that? Yeah.
He played for our defense essentially.
Yeah. I mean, Emory Jones is not a good quarterback. They benched him in like 2 of the past 4 games. You know, what Cincinnati has going for it, which is our biggest weakness, is they're a great rushing team. They've been all year. They're top 5 in the country, and they had 2 100-yard rushers against us. That's like their strength, but their quarterback is extremely unreliable. Their defense isn't great. They lost a lot of pieces from last year. So I think we were honestly like, did we make some strides in this game? Let me go positive first. Did we make some strides in this game? Yes. We only had 3 penalties for 20 yards. So we cleaned up there.
2 turnovers.
We had 0 turnovers. The defensive line played good. They got 9 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. I mean, they were all over the quarterback. But some of it is like what Trey said, like some of the things we saw in week 1, week 3, week 5, same thing. The run defense got torched. You know, we had the offense stagnate at certain times. I don't think like it's different. If we would have beat Cincinnati by like 3-4 touchdowns, it would have been a little more convincing. This was not a convincing win for me. We won by 2 points against a really bad team that is winless in the conference and hasn't won a game since week 2. So like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, we made all these strides and we look so much better. It was not a convincing win for me. We needed to stop a 2-point conversion just to get out of there alive. So I don't, like, there are still plenty of moments through the game where I felt this is a repeat of the week before. This is a repeat of the week before. But look, JRP got healthier, clearly had the most rushing yards he's had since he's returned from injury. So we had a little bit of that dynamic back, and we held on, and we, I guess, kind of overcame some of our fourth quarter issues. But the same time, like we played a really, really, I mean, this is going to end up being they're going to probably be the last place team in the conference.
Yep.
And so for me, I don't think we played particularly better. We just beat a worse team, and we made some strides in some areas, but do we keep up those strides against number 15 Oklahoma State, or against Texas Tech? Because as we saw against like Oklahoma, where we're all jazzed up that we played well and, you know, almost beat them, then the following week we had the same issues against West Virginia. So, you know, I'm obviously happy that we got the win, and I think that puts some life back in the locker room. And as like Gus has said, gets that winning feeling back. Guys are smiling again in the locker room. They have some confidence. They finally feel that like juice of winning again. But I don't think it was particularly because we had some great performance.
All right. So I'm going to differ with both of you. Makes for good content. No. Here's what I think the difference is this week. Statistically, we've been very good offensively. We've also been pretty terrible defensively. We've also lost a lot of close games this year, and we've had some really, really weird things happen to be able to lose those games. What I will say, and I'm going to reference the text that I sent, the one text, because I was working and trying to watch the game while on set, which doesn't work very well for anybody who's done video production. I kind of snuck away and was trying to watch the game. I said, this team has had too much dumb things, because we're a clean show, happen. There is no killer instinct. Coaches lost their ability to motivate. I mean, the D coordinator has no answers. The problem has been has not been the offense. I think, but I think that JRP lost his ability to motivate due to their record. One word: apathy. Now, that's a pretty strong statement. And that's how I was feeling in the middle of the game during that time period, Alan, that you're referencing, where the offense kept stagnating. We were leading, we were doing our thing, we were getting the ball back after the half, yada, yada, yada. And then JRP used his legs and willed his way to 2 first downs. That is, no matter what you think about JRP, that was the piece that was missing. And for once in 5 games, we didn't go to it and just lay down. During last year's games and this year's games, you could say anything you want about JRP. Statistically, he's actually a pretty good quarterback. However, the thing that we were missing was that one person who was going to step up and make the big play. JRP had enough strength or health, confidence in his legs to be able to make those 2 runs happen. And then also for that last first down that we needed to ice the game, right? That did not happen in our 5 losses. Because to your point, Trey, nobody else was stepping up and saying, hey, I'm going to make the play. Tremont Morris-Brash leads the Big 12, not the AAC, not the 4 new teams. He leads the Big 12 in sacks. We have the pieces. We've had the pieces. We offensively, we've outgained our opponents. We just didn't have that spark when we needed it. George O'Leary and Gus Malzahn. What do you hear? When you have close games like that, you win and lose games on 1 to 2 plays. There's going to be 1 to 2 plays that are pivotal in the game. What did Blake Bortles have the ability to do? He threw it to against Temple when our backs were against the wall to J.J. Wharton, right? He had the ability to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Mackenzie Milton, how many close games did we play in 2017?
Crap load.
What did you say, Trey? We never thought we were going to lose.
Yeah.
Right? And you did it. And I say you did it because you were a part of that team that went through all of that, those emotional roller coasters, right? That turned out you guys were not in an emotional roller coaster. The Heupel games. What was the biggest thing that Heupel was known for? Going bone, right? That's the biggest positive thing that he was known for, was going bone, right?
Yep.
Those pivotal moments, those pivotal plays, right, in games, and there's usually 1 to 2 of them, and it's proven week in and week out. This team has been able to move the ball. This team has been able to almost get off the field. There's I've got to look at I don't have the stats offhand, but we've played more 4th downs defensively than we have in years this season. Right? Now, why is that? Is because 3rd and short, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, we haven't proven that we can stop the run if somebody really bangs their head against the wall and says that, right?
Yep.
However, if we get those 3rd down conversions down, this defense is a lot better because they've made plays. They just haven't made it when it matters. And this game, we made it when it matters. So I will say that the difference in that is all of that jargon on the sideline and the fact that you walk out arm in arm. And maybe they start believing. Do I think it matters against OSU? We'll talk about that at the preview, right? But do I think it matters for this team for the rest of the year? I 100% do.
I love the positivity. I love it.
I agree with everything you're saying. But maybe this wasn't towards your point, but I still don't think that means that the team played well. Like, you might have had JRP, his ability to amp up a team and make those big plays. Of course, that was pivotal in the game, but that doesn't mean the team played necessarily well. I mean, we got outgained by over like 130 yards, and we put up one of our least offensive outputs yard-wise all season. So I agree with everything you said, and I think it was all mattered. That doesn't make me think that we played particularly well, though. We made some strides in certain areas, like maybe the leadership or making those 1 to 2 plays that matter, which I get, influence the win. But I don't think I looked at that game.
And that's where we lost all season long. We played better in other games,
but
yeah, we played better in other games.
I guess to also, like Alan's point, like Roger agreed, like pivotal moments earlier in the year is where we lost games, but we also lost those games because we weren't better than these other teams were playing. Like, I think it's a mixture of.
You don't think we were? I think we were at least on par because we were able to win, with the exception of Kansas. That's the only game that we got run out of the stadium. We outgained them.
And so for me personally, because we cannot stop the run, I always, in my opinion, if you can't stop the run, you don't beat anybody, in my opinion. Because if somebody, a smart person, if you don't want to stop the run, I'm just going to run the clock. I'm going to run through your face all game. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can adjust to it. At least when you pass, you can have a bad snap. The quarterback can make the wrong read. You can throw picks. When you can't stop the run, you don't want to be physical. Like, that is a manhood kind of challenge. That's why I think, again, I've talked to guys. I don't think our team is physical enough. I don't think we play physical. I don't think we're hitting.
Defensively, I agree with you. Yeah. We've talked about that ad nauseum on here.
Yeah, and I think that's why I feel like, even though the score doesn't say it sometimes, like, of course, like, yeah, Baylor, I think, might be the only game we kind of blew. Like, we blew that game.
Oh, there's no kind of. I mean, yeah. that was.
It was, but my
historic proportion.
Yeah, but to my point, even at the end of that game, all Baylor started doing was running the football, and we couldn't stop the run to get off the field to win the game either. And I think from
the offense also. The offense also had some breakdowns because they had some crazy, silly things.
They had some fumble sixes. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the pivotal moment when we need to stop, we cannot stop the run. You're going to lose the game. Same thing in the next week, Kansas State. We're going back and forth, back and forth. When we needed to stop, Kansas State just kept running the ball. Offense, we get stopped once, it's over because we know they're going to keep running. We can't stop. You go to the next week and the next week. Every single one of these weeks, if the team runs the football, we can't get a stop. Now, Oklahoma, like we said, matchups make fights. They wouldn't run the football, and which is why we kind of stayed in the game because they were wanting to pass so much, which plays into our strength. And it came back to bite them against the other teams the next 2 weeks. And then I think we saw the next week with West Virginia, they just ran the ball again. Like, I think that's where, to me, even though, yes, it's 1 or 2 games, I think I'm just going to speak for the defense. I think offensively we're in these games. Defensively, we will not win games if we cannot stop the run, in my opinion, unless you go against a Cincinnati who is we were a bad team record-wise.
They're worse, though. But that's kind of counterproductive or counterintuitive, right? Because you just said if we play teams that we can't stop the run, we didn't stop the run, and we played a top 5 rushing offense.
Yeah,
and we still won. So what was the difference? The difference was we got off the field 2 or 3 times. Just
I still think the opponent matters.
I think it's because it's because they're bad. Like, it's because they are a bad team. Like, that's what I think it is. Like, I don't think, because again, if you take this exact game we played and you put them against all the other teams, we don't win the game. The only time we are going to win, which this is why this was our first win, is because Cincinnati is that much worse. Like, I think if you simulate in a hypothetical world, offense stagnating out, we still can't stop the run. If I were to tell you before the game, Roger, we're not going to stop Cincinnati in the run, and our offense is going to stall a lot throughout the game, you would not have thought we would have won, because that's what's caused us to lose all year, that exact problem. But Cincinnati is just, again, they're not that good, in my opinion. Now, and I could be wrong.
They're 2-7. I think the results kind of speak for themselves.
Well, they're 2-7, but they're in the same situation that we are. Is every game that they've lost has been less than 7 points.
But
so they're not that bad.
Our roster is 1,000 times better than Cincinnati's roster. There's nobody in Cincinnati that would start on our team.
And we should have run away with it, other than their defensive lineman, whoever that guy is. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
That's a problem to me, because if we're 1,000 times more talented in the team, why do we only win by 2 points?
Because the offense stalled.
So that's my point. We can get away with beating our offense stalling and winning because Cincinnati is so much worse. When the talent is anywhere close, we're going to lose the game because
the opponent
are severely flawed. Like, our flaws are severe. It's not like, because every team has a flaw. I mean, you see it, especially this year.
So when do you give credit to the team for actually stopping them, though? Because they did stop them, despite it being the number 5 rushing offense in the country. You can't just gloss over that.
I mean, again, I guess we stopped them I don't think we stopped what they do well. I think they stopped themselves in sense. Emory Jones is the reason they lost. We didn't. If they would have just
he made some poor decisions. I mean, he was holding on the ball way too long. The RPOs.
I don't even know why they got away from the run. Like, they were really there. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't. It wasn't like, yes, of course we beat them. Yes, we
did. Satterfield out Gus? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, listen, he might have, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the point I'm getting at. Is they beat themselves more than we went out there and beat them, especially with the talent gap, in my opinion. I don't think it was because even at the talent is so huge. Why does the game decide on a 2-point conversion, in my opinion? Like, why is it to that point? Why is it that we're hoping Emory Jones doesn't make the right read to win the game? Like, that should not be the case.
Didn't he have someone wide open in the corner?
Yeah. He did. He did. And
so did JRP a few times. Let me ask you a silly question. This goes back to what we asked at the beginning of the show when I was kind of like doing my little monologue thing. Mm-hmm. Lines. Did we win this game because this was a G5 line and not a P5 line?
In my opinion, yeah. Because I think, like, when you mentioned that Trayvon Morris-Brash he leads the Big 12 in sacks. I don't know the exact stats. I would love to see what games he has all these sacks versus, like, our 5 losses. I don't remember them being super impactful besides Oklahoma. But
he's averaging over 1.5 sacks per game. So like he's been good and he's been sacking. Oklahoma was one. He got K-State.
He's been great. He's been one of the bright spots on the team.
Yeah, 100%. Like
him and RJ Harvey.
Yeah.
And Malachi Lawrence again this week.
He's really good. Yeah. Like, so I guess I would like to see, like, I guess a breakdown on like when these sacks come, because again, like I think he's a very good player, but to me, where are these sacks when we need them? Where are these TFLs when we really need them? Like that, to me, that's what I.
Well, you can't sack teams if they're running 300 yards on you because they're handing the ball off and the quarterback doesn't have the ball in his hands. That's the thing. That goes back to what we said about Oklahoma and matchups, right? The reason we played none of these teams have been passing the ball. And when they do pass the ball, it's within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So they're getting the ball out before our defensive rush can make a difference. And that's because the coaches have done their homework and they know our linebackers are not up to par. Period.
Yeah, and but I think that goes also to the line play. I think just our front seven is small in comparison to most of the teams we've played against. I think Ricky Barber and Lee Hunter, I think those are monsters. I mean, those
like Lee Hunter, yes, 100%.
Those are big boys. It doesn't matter what conference you put them in. Like they're big boys. But
Tremont is speed rush.
What'd you say?
I said Tremont is speed rush, right?
Yeah,
he's
not a DN, mass rusher. He's not you run right at him and he's gonna set the edge.
And how many whiffs did Celiscar have this year? Like I love Celiscar. He earned right, but he overran I don't know how many sacks this year. We would have had probably at least 4 or 5 more sacks at least had he not overrun his ankles.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the styles do make fights. I think because of our severe issues in the run game, there's no point to not. In my opinion, there's no point until you show us to run. I've been saying it for 5-6 weeks now. Until they show us they can stop the run, play physical, which we don't play physical enough, in my opinion, defensively. And that's just as a whole. I don't think we're striking people. I don't think. When you see us tackle, guys are getting knocked back. I don't know if that's a size. Well, I don't even blame that on the size because
it's the way that they're tackling. We've talked about
exactly.
This before.
One of our hardest hitters, Kyle Gibson, he was 170 pounds and he probably hit harder than everybody on our team. Like it's not it's a way they're tackling. They're just throwing their shoulders and going at their legs. And I just don't think they want to hit. I don't think they want to play physical football. And the offenses that we played all year, they do. And I think that's a problem. You can't play defense and not want to be physical. You can't play defense and not want to hit, strike, like cause pain to people. You never want to hurt people.
I still question how you're a linebacker at a D1 level. And I hate to say this way. If you're at 170 pounds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was 190 some pounds coming out of high school at 5.
It's bad. 11. It is so bad. The linebacker depth and recruiting they've had over I mean, like if Jason Johnson didn't stay this year, I don't even know what they would have done. Like they have,
that's
missed.
But that's part of it too, right? And I'll swap over so you can answer the question. But that's part of it too. Is like the senior linebackers that we did have, that we honed, are gone, and they're playing for Florida State, and Ole Miss. So. All right. What are your thoughts on that line question?
I agree, Trey. And I just think that, I think you saw it was more on par. Like it felt so much more comfortable playing Cincinnati compared to playing like other teams this year. I don't look, maybe regardless if we've been in other games, which we have, I understand that the talent, the starting level talent is probably pretty close to a lot of teams in the Big 12, but the depth is not. We've already all agreed and established that. And that's why I think we looked at Cincinnati. They are in a similar situation. They don't have that depth, especially on the lines, the big uglies. So it felt like it was more on par, and we still just escaped with a win. So I think
our starters, like you said, our starting talent, I don't think there's, out of the 22 guys, both sides, I don't think there's many guys on Cincinnati that would start on our team.
Right. And And then you have these, and there would be probably a lot of our starters that would start on other Big 12 teams, not all of them, but some of them. But yeah, I just think that the opponent matters here. And maybe Cincinnati has been in a bunch of 1-score games and all this and that, but I don't know. I just think they're not good, and they have such a bad quarterback that is a factor too. But when you go directly talking about the lines, yeah, I think a big reason was, was the fact that, yeah, they have a G5 line. And, so I guess their O-line maybe played okay to allow 200 and something rushing yards, or our linebackers are just really bad. One of the two. But
no, I mean, they have a good O-line. They have to, because they've been doing it to everybody. It's not just us. They've been doing it too.
Yeah.
That's been their strength, right? I mean, like you said, top 5 rushing offense. That wasn't just against preseason teams.
No, it was against good teams.
Against UCF. It was against the same teams that were playing in the P5. So yes, their offensive line is good. There's no way they can't be a top 5 rushing offense.
I just think we look better because of the opponent. Like I agree with Trey that we put up this performance against most other teams. Yeah, maybe there are scenarios where a ball bounces our way and we escape with a win, like in some of these close games. But if I'm talking about like a bigger sample size, like that's why I like when we talk about like basketball or hockey, you have a 7-game series. Yeah. Most of the time, the better team wins in a 7-game series.
Exactly.
So if you take this game and you play whomever, West Virginia or Oklahoma State, 7 times the exact same way we played, I don't think we win most of those games. So that's my thoughts on it. And I think playing Cincinnati's poor depth and poor overall team definitely helped us in this win.
All right. So best of the rest. That's what I heard. Okay. Can we build off of this win and get to bowl eligibility?
I mean, yeah, of course. You can build off any win.
Do you think we will? That's a better question.
No, because the same issues that we pointed out week 1, I saw them last week. We just happened to play a worse team. I don't realistically, I don't see us stopping Oklahoma State because they have a great rushing attack.
Number 1 in the country. Or the running back is the number 1 running back in the country.
Yeah, and he's very good. So realistically, I don't think
he's just big. He's a big dude.
I mean, that's what we struggle with because nobody on our team wants to hit big players. Like that's a problem. Nor can
the question is, can they? If you're 170, 180 pounds and you've got a 6 foot something, 220, 230 pound running back,
it's a mentality. It's a mentality. Bro. Yes, size plays a factor, but I promise
if you're 5'10", 170, 180 pounds, if I'm a running back, I'm running through you. If I'm 6 foot something plus 220, 230.
I'm telling you, Kyle Gibson is the reason why I changed my thought process on that was because I played with Kyle Gibson. He was soaking wet 100. He was probably 5'11", 6 foot, 175 pounds soaking wet. From the 4 years we played, he has knocked out players who were 230, 240, 250. In spring ball, he hit one of our tight ends, knocked him out cold. When we played Houston.
Hold on. Who do you knock out cold? You never told us that story.
No, I can't. I'm not gonna.
Oh no! Yes, you can. No, yes, you can. Who did he KO?
One of our guys, Kyle Gibson,
like that.
He has and it's not like they're cheap shots either. He's looking you in the eye. The guy tried to run him over, and Kyle hits him face first. Kenneth Farrow, the running back from Houston, Kyle knocked him out cold, fumbled the ball. And we were getting blown out that game. Still not it's a mentality when you want to hit somebody, it is a mentality. TJ Mutcherson, another safety. Jericho Johnson, another safety. Clayton Gathers, all of these guys, that's where all of our mentality comes. Like when we played, I'm like, you can't play if you're not going to be fearless and want to hit people. So I don't see that with anybody on the defense. I don't see it from our linebackers. I don't really see it from our D line. They play nasty and they play.
I see that from Lee Hunter.
He does play. He plays a physical brand.
Well, also he's huge.
He's mean.
He's huge.
Yeah. He has.
It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, I don't know if you remember the one well, Trey, you already told us you didn't watch press conferences. That dude is the one dude I would on that team that I would not. Well, there's a few of them. Let's be honest. I'm not the same size as I used to be. But you know, right now, like if I was the same size that I was before, that's the one dude I would not want to meet in a dark alley. Like legit.
And that's the thing. Like all the defenses that I played on, we had 6, 7, 8, 9 of those dudes on our team. It wasn't just one guy. It was a bunch of, because that's what defense is. Defense is about being nasty, being physical, wanting to hurt players. You don't want to not hurt. You want to cause pain to them, though.
Oh, you want to knock their heads off? Like the big. Like we've talked about this all the time. Like when I play,
we get a thrill from knocking people's heads off.
There's no better feeling than knocking somebody out.
We don't want to hurt you. You don't want to cause any long-term damage to you. But we do want to instill a fear of if you run at me, you're going to be hurting after you hit. And I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do it again. And sometimes that's what it's about. I remember when we played Memphis in the conference championship game. Anthony Miller is a physical player. He likes to instill fear because it makes people play soft on him. We literally were hitting him anytime. If he came and cracked, hit him, put him in the ground. Because you don't like getting hit. Nobody likes getting hit, in my opinion. I quit playing offense because I didn't like getting hit. You know, I'd rather hit somebody than get hit. And I just don't see that enough from our guys. It's the form, but you can have poor form. I know plenty of people that have had poor form tackling because it's hard. But if you are playing fast and physical, you can make up for that. If everybody on our team was playing fast and trying to hurt somebody, knock somebody's head off, the defense would look night and day different, especially in the run defense, because that's all it is.
All right, Alan, can we build off this?
I think we can. Like I said, I think what Gus said was so true that like
will we? I want to change that question. I want to change it to will we?
I think it's largely dependent on this weekend's game.
He's straddling the fence.
Well, he's straddling the fence. If you win this game this weekend, it's a season-changing win. I think the confidence permeates into the final 2 games, and they could get it. I think when you have a loss this upcoming weekend, the pressure of having to win out the final 2 games to get a bowl eligible, I'm not sure this team can handle that pressure. But will we build off this win? I'm going to say yes, because I that doesn't mean I'm saying there's going to be more wins, but I think you can still build something off of it, whether it's confidence, some better habits, some key takeaways. I don't know, the trick plays, some of the decision-making, JRP's confidence back in his legs, and the team seeing that and knowing he can bail them out on 3rd downs and on 3rd and shorts. So I think, yes, there are things we will build off it, but I'm not saying that necessarily translates to dubs for the rest of the season.
All right. I'm going to say this. This is going to be my hot take. We used to have hot takes of the week. We will be bowl eligible. Texas Tech is not a good team. They are on their 3rd string quarterback. They have lost against BYU.
What about Oklahoma State? You just skip over Oklahoma State.
Yes. I'm talking about how we're going to be bowl eligible. I think we beat Texas Tech.
And Houston.
And they just barely won against TCU. TCU is not good this year. And they have their own issues. I mean, they should be good, but they're not because of injury. Okay. So Texas Tech, I think we win that game. I think we win Houston. So I think we get bowl eligible. I do think we use this as a springboard to win those. I don't think we win those games had we lost this game. I think I think JRP is getting healthier. I think that if we're 6 games in the hole and then 7 games by the time we play OSU, there's no way that team is not demoralized enough that they win that game against Texas Tech. So I'm going to say our first real Big 12 win, which should have been Baylor, is going to be Texas Tech. And we're going to make sure that we knock the visor and the remaining hair off of Houston. So you heard it here first. That's my prediction. All right.
I think that's crazy. Yeah. That's fair.
Let's talk about We kind of talked about JRP already. Let's talk about RJ Harvey. We haven't really said anything about him. And career high 164 yards, 3 TDs, Big 12 player of the week. He just looked dominant. I've watched RJ Harvey a long time. If he isn't fumbling, that man is just dominant. That's his biggest problem has been he's had fumbleitis during certain games. But the thing that I've noticed about him this year is he reminds me of Greg McCrae with his patience. He's waiting. Before the biggest reason Greg McCrae was as good of a running back as he was, and I think he was our last 1,000-yard rusher, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
The reason why Greg McCrae was so successful is he would hide himself in the line, pick a hole behind the lineman, and then explode. I'm seeing the same thing from RJ Harvey. I feel like in the past he would hit a hole, run, and then that was it. And he would use his power to explode through. The difference between RJ Harvey this year is that, and he's catching the ball off the perimeter and making it happen that way as well. You have to account for RJ Harvey, and he proved it this week. Thoughts on RJ Harvey?
Yeah, I mean,
would you want to face 5'9", 210 pounds?
Oh yeah, that's not an issue though.
Oh, there goes Trey.
No, I mean, when I was playing, I'm 6'1.5". I was 210, 215.
Yeah, that's right. You were a bigger.
Yeah,
safety.
I wasn't.
You were a bigger safety.
Yeah, I wasn't a little safety. I mean, I think the kid is great. As far as I think he has an NFL upside. That's the kind of I personally don't think he's coming back next year. I think this is it. I think he's a redshirt junior.
Senior.
If I'm not mistaken. Oh, he's a senior?
Yeah.
Oh, then yeah, he's definitely leaving. But yeah, I think he has a NFL future. Of course, yeah, he's gonna have to figure out the fumble issue, which that could hold him back a little bit. But as far as the skill set, the tools, what it takes to be a professional player, I think he has all of it. I think he's big enough, plenty big enough. He's 200, 210 is what you said, Roger?
Yeah.
210.
And he looks good. Like, he doesn't look small.
That dude's stacked. That dude is like built.
Yeah, and he has great burst. He has the patience. A lot of guys don't have that patience. He can catch, which that's what the game is turning into. So I think that he showed it this past week, and I think he's shown it pretty much all year throughout most of the games. He can play physical if he needs to. He can bang it inside the tackles. He can play out. He can run stretches. He can run pitches. He's shown a little bit of wildcat. And he can catch the ball. I think when we're going to appreciate him more when he leaves, because I think throughout, at least when I played, a lot of these guys we had were more so specialists. Adrian Killens was the home run hitter. Otis was kind of that dual threat. He could run. He could
we have one right now, Johnny Richardson.
Yeah. But RJ has all of it put into one guy, which that's what makes those kind of guys special, like a Kevin Smith, like the Latavius Murrays, even Will Stanback. Those guys could do all of it in one body versus a specialty role. So I think once we get to next year and we start seeing some of these younger guys, we're going to be like, they're good, but they might be lacking in this area, or they might be lacking in an area where RJ could do it all. We've asked him to do everything in the run game, especially when JRP got hurt. We asked him to kind of carry our run game, and he's proven that he can. So.
Yeah, Latavius Murray, I saw him play this weekend in the NFL. He's still trucking along. That train is
like fine wine, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's what? He's 30, 33, 34. I mean, and he's
up
there. For a running back, on average, what do they last? I think it's 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Is the statistic. So
he's double digits, I think, now. So, hey, man.
And just a great dude. All right, Alan, what are your thoughts on that? RJ Harvey.
Yeah, he's been dynamic. It's interesting. We talk about, one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the season was we have all this running back depth. It was our strongest position on offense. We have 5 guys that are awesome, but what's really happened, and maybe some of it is some of those guys towards the end of the depth chart aren't as good as we thought, but I think it's more that RJ Harvey has taken this role and ran away with it. I mean, he has double the amount of carries as the next closest player, which is Johnny Richardson. And he's looked great doing it. I mean, it's 4 straight 100-yard games. The first player to do that since Latavius Murray in 2012, I think it was. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to be our first 1,000-yard rusher here since Greg McCrae, like you alluded to, Roger. He's about 120 yards away. So he should be able to do that in 1 or 2 games. But yeah, he's been fantastic. He's been one of the few bright spots of this season. I mean, pretty much he's been a consistent guy, and that's what we need is some consistency. And he's been there to do that when we needed a big play, whether it's a home run play or just that kind of short yardage using that big body, that big frame of his to get it. He's been able to do it. He's been able to catch, like you said, Trey. I mean, he's an athlete. I mean, he used to be a quarterback in high school and was recruited as a quarterback to Virginia before transferring to UCF. So, I mean, yeah, he's been fantastic. I mean, the fact that he's changed roles to a running back, I mean, really since he got here, they've been talking him up. And then he unfortunately, like he was listed as RB1 like 2 years ago, but then he tore his ACL and had to miss the whole year. So he's been really dynamic. I mean, we started to see that last year in the Cincy game when he had that game-winning touchdown. And yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic this year. And yeah, I don't know about the NFL upside, but I don't really have the eye for that. But as far as what he's done at UCF, he's been amazing this year, and he's really started to heat up in the last 4 weeks. And you know, a big reason why we've been in games, a big reason why our offense has been able to gain yards has been because of him. So, yeah, I'm thrilled with him. And I think, yeah, we'll probably appreciate him a little bit more when he leaves. And, you know, he'll probably go down somewhere, maybe in the top 10 for running backs all time. I don't know. Maybe he could sneak into that top 5, depending how he finishes out, but he's up there. He's somewhere up there in the UCF pantheon of running backs.
Yeah. So I think he's also benefited from the fact that JRP has been injured. He's been injured. So we've leaned on him last year. I think he could have had a similar type of season, but he didn't because JRP is JRP. And what he does well is run the ball, and he gives us an extra dynamic. So I do think that Johnny Richardson has suffered because of that, because instead of 3 people that you have to worry about, you really only have 2. So all right, let's go ahead and shift gears now and talk about Mullet Mania. We're going to talk about the Mullet Mania preview. As many of you know, the head coach for the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who I think has been the head coach 12 or 13 years, so longest tenured coach in the Big 12.
18.
Is it 18 years?
I think it's been since like 2005 or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this. He has won a lot of games, and he wins a lot of games because he's a smart coach. He's very outspoken. I'm actually a fan of his because he tells it like it is. He reminds me a little bit of Mike. Who was the guy from Texas Tech that went to
Mississippi State?
Yeah.
Mike, the guy that, Mike Leach.
Mike Leach reminds me of Mike Leach quite a bit. You know, I mean, he isn't quite pirate level, but he tells it like it is, and he says what's on his mind, and I appreciate that about him. So, you know, he has the flowing mane, so you might underestimate him, but he's actually done really, really well for Oklahoma State. And has managed to keep this team together. If you guys remember earlier on in the season, we were talking about, hey, would they even have a team? Because a lot of the team members were getting ready to portal up and leave because he made a statement about NIL, right? And it's not like Oklahoma State doesn't have money. They've had T. Boone Pickens and oil money for a very long time, so they're a well-funded program, irrespective of what they were earning. And, you know, as we've talked about, they are the number 15 team in the country. And somehow we are only 2.5-point dogs at home, which is interesting. I mean, we've been favored in just about every game that we've played this year, home or away. And, you know, it's going to be tough to play at UCF at the Bounce House. I expect this game to be well attended. We put in new lights on the
I saw that
on the ground level and in the like over the exits where you actually come out of the tunnel and into your seats. So I think our plan is to blind them and maybe put them into epileptic seizures because it will be a night game. But you know, at the end of the day, we're 2.5-point dogs at home, and that means Vegas is really seeing, and some of them had it down to 1. You know, the home team always gets 3 points, so really we're talking about less than a touchdown favorites against UCF, in spite of all of the success that they've had. So it's pretty interesting to see that happen. I will say they had quarterback controversy at the beginning of the season, so they were trying to figure it out. It seems like they've hit their stride there, and they're currently 7-2 and 5-1 in conference, in second place overall. So good team coming in. Obviously, we've beat it over the head. They're the #1 rushing team. We've struggled with that. They've got a very big back in Ollie Gordon, who you know, is the #1 rushing running back in the country right now. He's massive. He's a massive human being for a running back, and he's good at what he does when he gets a full head of steam going. He's one of those running backs that you might be able to stop him the first 2 quarters. I've watched a few Oklahoma State games, and people have been able to slow him down or stop him early on, but he just keeps coming. And by the 3rd or 4th quarter, he just wears your defense out. So it's going to be an interesting game. And the big question is can the run defense handle Ollie Gordon? So let me ask that question to you first, Alan. What do you think? Because I think I know what Trey's going to say.
I mean, no. I mean, look, he's the #1 running back in the country for a reason. You know, he has over 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's averaging 7 yards a carry. I mean, we just allowed, since we've allowed 8 running backs to put up 100 yards or more this year. 8 different running backs in 9 games. So I don't think a miracle is going to happen. We're going to stop the #1 running back in the country, at least statistically. From you know, that's what they do best. I mean, it's kind of eerie how similar a lot of these Big 12 teams are. With, you know, a lot of them have like great running games, at least this year, but their quarterbacks like aren't that good. I mean, same thing with Alan Bowman, Oklahoma State's quarterback. He hasn't been great this year. They've relied heavily on Gordon, and no, I don't see any reason why we could stop. That doesn't mean we can't win the game necessarily, but I don't see how we're going to stop a guy that is double the size of any of our linebackers and has been, forget UCF. I mean, he's been dominating a bunch of teams throughout the Big 12. So it's not really even necessarily a knock on UCF. It's like, you know, not a lot of teams have been able to stop him. I mean, he put up 271 yards against Cincinnati, put up 282 yards against West Virginia. So, you know, I think we're going to have a lot of trouble stopping.
How many yards did we put up against West Virginia rushing?
As a team? Well, I'm talking about just himself. He put up 200.
No, I get it's just him, but we don't play just one running back. We don't do that. Like, that's not how we do it. So rushing, how many yards did we put up against West Virginia? Do you remember?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. We put up 189 against West Virginia.
Okay. So, and I think that was the #1 rushing defense in the Big 12, isn't it not?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure they are.
And he ran for what?
286 yards against them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make.
So, well, that answers your question. Do we have a chance against them? Probably not.
All right, Trey Neal, what are your thoughts? Oh, wait, I already know what your thoughts are. No, go ahead.
Again, I mean, if we can't stop the run, I feel like I've said this every week. If we don't stop the run, we can't win, because I just think if you can run the football with physicality, you can win 99% of your games. Now, we honestly, I take back what I said. We could win. It's just we're going to have to play flawless on offense. I don't think we're going to be able to stop the run on defense. So, I mean, again, if you can run for 289 yards against the #1 rush defense in the conference, I mean, put 1 + 1 = 2. You know what's going to happen against a bottom.
we know what their game plan is going to be, right? So the question is there a path to win this game?
There's always a path in college. In sports, period, there's always a path to win. It's just the odds of it happening are very slim. Now, again, if we play ball control-ish on offense, play efficient, can't really stall out, and we do the same thing that they're going to try to do to us, then I think it's going to ultimately be who has the ball last or who has the more time of the possession.
Or who has turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, if we turn the ball over and they don't, then we're probably going to lose. But I think there is a path for us to win. I just don't know how likely or how likely we're going to actually fulfill that.
Okay. Fair answer. Mullet Mania for me. We're starting to see defensive changes from Addison Williams, which is a good thing. We finally figured out that we can do different things. We can, we've seen it over the last 2 weeks. We've seen the linebackers shift. We've seen different defensive fronts. We're bringing blitzers in. I don't know if safety blitzes are the right move, but then again, as opposed to corner blitzes, but we have seen some safety blitzes come in. I think our biggest thing, and again, I'm going to repeat myself. These guys are not going to pass the ball. Stack the box. Get numbers on it. That way you can plug the gaps. Because even if the first guy doesn't get them, you're slowing them down enough that you can get help defense. And that's the biggest thing. Now, this last game and in previous games, one of the things that I've seen is just tackles that are so blatantly bad that you don't really slow down the defender or the offensive player long enough for your help defense to come in. So, for me, that's really going to be something that we're gonna have to look out for, and we'll talk about that in our keys to the game. All right, one last question before we move on to Trey yelling at clouds, because we do have to talk about basketball this week, and we're at 1:21 already. So do you? And you know what? I'm not even going to ask this question. We did lose DJ Allen this week. We've already kind of answered it. I do think our players are recruits are looking at this as an opportunity more than anything else. And by the way, shout out to EJ Colson. The man is watching our basketball games and tweeting them out. So, no matter what you feel, whoever the right answer is for QB in the future, EJ Colson has been recruiting for us. He's all in on UCF, and I appreciate that about that. No matter how his career turns out, I respect that man for being as all in as he is on UCF in spite of everything that's happened. So, which he's having a pretty good season in high school in his own right. All right, so let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about basketball. Hoops is officially started. We played FIU in our first game. The guys don't have as much to say about hoops. We're actually going to have a guest come in and talk. I think we're going to probably talk with him next week. Alan's trying to get me to watch highlights while I'm on the show. Can't do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about hoops. So some things that they were surprisingly good. And I'll say that, we didn't know much about this team. We had a bunch of transfer players that came in. We learned this week that we lost CJ Walker. He, from what I'm hearing, has a meniscus issue. So he may be back in December. He may not, who knows? But the last scrimmage before the season began, he has an issue with his meniscus, and as a result released a video. And it's never good when UCF actually releases a video saying, "Hey, I'm sorry I won't be there. I really wanted to be. I love you guys." So hopefully we do get CJ Walker back. But this team was playing FIU, who is better. They're still, I think, 7th or 8th in their conference, picked 7th or 8th in their conference. They did completely revamp their team. They held their leading scorer from last year to 2 points, which is ridiculous. And they played really, really well. And the biggest thing for me was whenever you put new teams together, and we've seen this year in and year out at UCF, the chemistry and the ball movement is typically terrible for the first, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 games, right? And this team did not look like they lost a step when it came to chemistry, anticipation, and all of those fun things. FIU did get a bunch of bigs in, so they had the opportunity athletically to be able to, compete with us on the boards, etc. And UCF did a really good job. Sellers and Allen were amazing. 30-point game for Sellers. He's a transfer as well that came in. I believe it was Ball State that he came from, and played absolutely amazing basketball. He did it on all 3 levels of the court. He had 3-point shots. He drove the basket. He dunked. He just was really a really, really good player. And Allen, not our Allen, unfortunately, was also played really, really well, distributed the ball well, and just, I was very impressed. We played fundamental basketball, which is something that we've been missing at UCF for a very long time. So I don't know if that's Johnny Dawkins actually being able to teach his fundamentals or not. Defensively, we played really well. We saw a couple of the freshmen. We played 11 players this game, so we saw a lot of new, fresh faces. They played really well. Silla still, in my opinion, I know some people said he made some strides. To me, he's making the same mistakes as he did before in fouling and shooting a 3-ball. I mean, he made it like his first one, but then he just spots up there. He's not a shooting guard. He needs to figure that out. Ibrahim was really, really good blocking. We had a lot of blocks this game. I'm a little worried about rebounding. We had a lot of guards. We had a lot of guards following shots and going in and getting rebounds, but we can't do that against Big 12 teams who have better talent. So we're going to need to be careful of that. Another thing, 21 fouls this game, most of it in the second half. We need to clean that up. I think our guys got lazy. We were leading at 30 points, by 30 points at some point, which is still freaking amazing for a UCF basketball offense. We did have 18 turnovers. However, we did have 16 assists, which tells me that, we're distributing the ball well, and that was awesome. We did have some problems with the press at times, but overall, guys, I came away extremely impressed. We won 85-62 at home. The student section was full. So shout out to the student section for game 1 in the middle of the week and being completely full. That's exactly what we want to see. Omar Payne played 15 minutes. He's a big transfer that we're expecting a lot of. He fouled out. He had 6 rebounds. So he's part of our starting 5, our new look starting 5. The other thing is Darius Johnson. So Darius Johnson has been in games past has been pressing a lot because he felt like he needed to carry the team, and he looked a lot more relaxed. We can play a 4-guard lineup and still be successful. His rainbow shot that he changed to last year looked a lot better this game. So if he can make that, if he can get up to, I'll borrow from Mike O'Donnell during the show, if he can get to 35% on that new look 3-point shot, he's going to have a great season for us. And he doesn't have to be the creator for everything. And we aren't reliant that if he gets in foul trouble, we basically lose our offense. It's kind of like a depth thing, as it is for football. So Sellers, 8 for 15. He had 23 points. Allen was 3 for 7, had 8 points, but he facilitated a lot He had 5 assists, 5 rebounds, which is kind of crazy. Darius Johnson, 5 for 12, 15 points. DeMar Langford, he was 2 for 4. Johnny has a lot of expectations for him. The only issue I have with him is he's probably got the worst free throw shooting form that I've seen since Shaq. So, I mean, that's really bad. Diallo was really, 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 really good. He was great in the paint, had 3 blocks in limited minutes. He had 11 minutes and had 3 blocks. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm expecting a lot from him. So overall, Tyler Hendricks played really, really well. 14 minutes, 3 for 4 for him, shooting 7 points, very efficient. He played a lot better than what I was expecting. And you know, we'll have a much tougher test. We play Miami next. They're number 13 right now. We play them on Friday. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised by this UCF basketball team. When we get Chance in here to talk about what he saw from a basketball perspective, it's like having Trey come in here and talk about basketball. I'm super excited to see that as well. So all of that being said, I realize I didn't change this, so I'm just going to put this on here for like 2 seconds. And Trey, it's time for you to yell at a cloud.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to yell about this week.
What? I'm going to yell at you for not having anything to yell about.
I've been yelling about the same stuff for not 6 weeks now. I wish the defense would tackle. I wish they'd play physical. I mean, other than that, that's not. It's the same story. You know, I feel like I'm just. I feel like now I am yelling at the clouds. How much I repeat it. But until we do that, you know, we're going to struggle. I think we need to bring a physical brand of football back to the defensive side. We don't have to be. I'm not saying play perfect defense. I don't think any defense can play perfect nowadays with all the rules and things like that. But there is a way to play physical, play violent. You know, not to hurt anybody or cause them long-term pain, but you play defense to play violent, play fast, and physical.
Listen, if you were playing defense and you don't enjoy like knocking somebody the F out,
you're not a defender.
We're a clean show. You're not a defender, because I can tell you that was the best part. And I've told you guys this. I've told Trey this. I've told Alan this. The best part of playing defense is laying somebody out.
Yeah, and even the guys that I played with, all of our corners, even our corners would like to hit. Like Mike Hughes loved to hit. Neville Clark loved to hit. They love being in situations where they could get in the run game when they had the opportunity, because it's fun. That's the whole point of playing defense, is to hit somebody. You don't get hit. Like that's the one advantage you have on defense, is that nobody's really trying to hit you. They're just trying to get the ball and be fancy and pretty and score. You are out there to hit people. Like, so I think until we do that, I think we're gonna struggle. You know, that's just me personally, because I think defense is about playing physical and doing that. Last year, I thought we were a lot more physical than we were this year. Our problem was just getting turnovers. But I would much rather have last year's defense that played somewhat kind of physical, a brand of football, and just struggle getting turnovers than what I see now. Yeah, the turnovers are great.
We had one of the best red zone defenses in all of college football last year.
Yeah. And again, like I would much rather have that than what we do this year, because again, it's so demoralizing to me when you can't stop the run. And it's even more demoralizing when it looks like you don't want to stop the run. You know, like that's the worst part about it. So that's my yelling at cloud segment. I want a physical brand of defensive football back, because I've talked to guys about it, you know, that played in the past. That was one thing we were never going to let people do, was, you know, punk us. And it feels like these guys don't care if they get punked on the field.
Wow. That's strong words. So challenge laid out there. I mean, you saw a bunch of former UCF defensive players saying something similar. I've never seen them so vocal as I have this season, to be honest.
It's because we know mistakes are going to be made. That's a part of it. We know you're going to play good competition. The one thing you can control on defense is how hard you play, how physical you play, because there's no boundaries to that. The only thing they can say is, hey, don't hit them that hard. Like that's the only thing they can do is pull you back. We should never have a defense to where we're like, please hit somebody. Go be physical with them. We need to have a defense where like, hey, man, you can't be trying to knock people's heads off going for the helmet, lowering, like doing that. But I would much rather have those issues, than the ones we currently have. So That's what most of the guys are complaining about. It's a lack of physicality. It's a lack of dog. It's a lack of, wanting to be nasty. That's what it is. And not nasty in the, like I say, the words.
No, let's be real. No, stop it. I want my defense to be nasty. Yes. I want them to have a chip on their shoulder. I want them to be knocking people's heads off. I want them to have like that mentality that I'm going to, you got the ball, I'm coming to get you.
Yes, they need to teeter on the line of playing dirty. Now, I don't want them playing dirty, but that line is very
Memphis or BYU.
Yeah, you don't want to play dirty, but you need to play as close to that as possible, because besides playing dirty, it's just playing nasty, playing physical, playing violent. That's all it is. Like that's the next line past that is just playing dirty, which nobody wants to do that. So if you can play as close to dirty, that's what defense is for. Those are the best defenses to me in the country. You look at the Georgias, you look at the Alabamas. Yeah, they're good. They're athletic, but they are all physical at every level. They're physical up front. They're physical linebackers. Their corners are physical. Like that's how you play defense, because that's what defense is for. So if you don't want to be physical, to me, you shouldn't be playing defense. You can go play offense, play kick return, punt return, go do that. But
you can be fancy and look pretty, like you said earlier, right?
Yeah, you can go do that. But you shouldn't be on the field if you don't want to go out there and strike and hit people and play nasty. To me, there's no way you should be on the field if you are afraid to tackle. If you're afraid to strike somebody in the mouth. If you don't want to do that, you don't need to play.
All right. So I think that qualifies as officially yelling at a cloud. So I think that puts us where we need to be. Good job, Trey, again this week. Alan, that brings us to Alan's oxymoronic stats of the week.
All right. So I think I got some good ones today. So as we mentioned, Ollie Gordon is the #1 rusher in the country, has the most rushing yards in the country. But Oklahoma State as a team is only ranked 7th in the conference in total rushing yards. And a big reason for that is the gap between Ollie Gordon and Oklahoma State's next leading rusher. The gap is 1,069 yards. So that leads the nation as the biggest gap between any two running backs or any two rushers on the same team. OSU's second leading rusher has just over 100 yards. So that's a pretty crazy gap. Even though, I mean, it makes sense because he's very, very good, but that's, he has 1,069 more rushing yards than the next highest person.
That's a workhorse.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma State, they are the only current top 25 team that ranks in the bottom 25 in total defense. So out of the other 24 teams are ranked much higher than them defensively. They're one of 2 top 25 teams that rank in the bottom 25 in passing defense. And they're the only top 25 team that ranks in the bottom 25 in rushing defense. So interesting. Their defense has been actually very bad, bottom 25 in all categories. So not really sure where they're getting it done. I guess maybe offense is really where they're doing it. But even despite all that, they only give up 24 points a game. So they are giving up a lot of yards, but they're not giving up a lot of scoring. And then in Big 12 play this year, Oklahoma State has only had the lead entering the fourth quarter twice all season. So they've actually had 4 come from behind victories in the fourth quarter in Big 12 play. So they are, basically doing the opposite of what we do in the fourth quarter. And that's how they've been able to win 5 straight and get into second place in the conference. And those are my stats of the week.
Well, that's certainly interesting and compelling. So, hey, if we can play that ball control in the fourth quarter, we might have a shot at that. We talked about how, Ollie was pretty much wearing down defenses in the fourth quarter, and that may be an opportunity for us if we can hold up. So thank you for that. Normally, this would be the time for Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week, which also includes song lyrics and folks that we don't think we know, but we actually know by the songs that they had. So obviously, we are missing him this week. We won't have that segment. So I'm just going to flash this up real briefly in honor of Josh, and then we're going to move on. So we're now into the segment of listener love. So I just want to give a quick shout out to the 4 new subscribers that we got over the last few days. Thank you guys for taking the plunge and actually subscribing to our content. 1, giving us the opportunity to give you more content that hopefully you enjoy. But 2, it really helps us out a lot and makes it easier for you to find our content as you browse YouTube. So thank you. Shout out to all of you. And please continue to do that. In addition to that, we got lots of feedback last week. I think I may need to miss more shows because we got lots of great feedback last week about Trey and, Trey's being real. And, part of the reason I asked Trey to be part of this is not just because he and I are friends outside of the program, but also, the fact that he can provide a recent player perspective, especially when it comes to, going from a winless team to an undefeated team in the span of 3 years. And the listeners seem to appreciate that candor and that inside view. As we said earlier, some of the observations that we are making collectively as a group, and Trey, you specifically, are coming through in Coach Malzahn's press conferences. So it sounds like we are seeing the things that he's seeing. And as much as we are Monday morning quarterbacking here, and in this case, Tuesday evening quarterbacking, it seems like we're hitting the nail on the head. So thank you all for providing us with that feedback. It helps inform us on how to make this a better show for you. Please keep interacting. Please keep commenting. Tell other people about the show, and thank you for the positive feedback. It really does make a difference for us as we sit here for 2 hours every week to provide you all the great content that we're doing. So with all of that being said, it's time to pick our poison for this week. So we're going to pick our poison for our score predictions. I'm going to start with Alan. If you can tell us what your poison is. And actually, before that, Alan, why don't you go over last week's results?
I was going to say that, yeah. All right, so
I corrected myself, Alan.
Yeah.
I was out of the seat, out of the chair for a week, and you see what happens. I forget how to do this. So go ahead, Alan.
So Roger and I disagree on this, but if we're going by Roger's logic here, the margin of victory matters. So I think this week I had the closest margin. I had UCF 19, Cincy 16. So I had a 3-point margin, but they won by 2.
19-16. That's an interesting.
Yeah. Josh had 31-21. Trey had 34-28, and Roger had 68-3 Cincinnati winning.
Clearly, I had the best one all week because it completely turned it around. I told you guys I would never pick against UCF, and the 1 week that I did in absentia, we won. So I don't know. Maybe
you get some credit.
Maybe there's some reverse psychology going on here. I don't know. Something.
That's what I did. My poisons weren't poison last week. They were all positive things.
Yeah, that's true. Because I went back and listened to the show, obviously, before I edited and posted it, they were definitely positive. So you didn't do that this week for us, Trey. So hopefully maybe you'll do it in this segment. All right, go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So that's our scores from last week. For this week, I'm going to go positive too. We're all gone on a positive vibe here. I'm not sure if I believe what I'm saying right now, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go UCF 33, Oklahoma State 30. So I'm going to go 33-30. It's a 3.5 point spread, or 3-point spread for a reason. And every UCF game, for the most part, outside of a couple, have been really close, 1-possession games. So I'll stick with that and think we can maybe eke out a win. The thing that has me a little more confidence, even maybe it doesn't matter, but it is the space game, which we didn't mention yet. It is the space game, and I think UCF
those fresh Carolina Blues.
I need to get those jerseys, man.
I think UCF is undefeated in the space games so far, so hopefully we don't end that streak. My poison, it would just be, just basically kind of everything we talked about today, where, basically we only got the win because Cincy was really bad, and we revert back to, not that we really broke all of our old habits this past week against Cincy, but if we just look just completely awful, come out flat, and, just really get wrecked by Oklahoma State, and, don't get any closer to getting that first true Big 12 victory, and just kind of everything that any kind of mojo or momentum that we gained from last week just kind of falls flat, and we, go back to really the frustrating style of play that we've seen, most of Big 12 play would be my poison.
All right. Trey, Neal, pick your poison, and what is your prediction for this week?
Yeah, so my score prediction, I'm going to have the same spread as Allen. I think it'll be a 3-point game. I'm always going to go with the guys, so I think it'll be 30-27 that we win. So, Allen, we might have a tie as far as point spread. We'll see who gets closer as far as the score.
Yeah.
But my poison is gonna be similar. I think the worst thing that could happen is the season unravels before us. I think, we're going to be at home, space game. We're always hyped for those, see those new jerseys. Those guys are going to have energy just, because it's always cool to put on some new jerseys, some new gear, some vintage stuff that, you wear once a year. But the worst thing would be, we start out slow, something bad happens, and it's just downhill from there, and then just everything unravels. And the things that, we saw Cincy, the brothers in arms, it was just a facade, and guys are pissed off, and we revert back to those same old habits. I think that'll be the poison. Because, again, I think you're never going to win every game all the time, No, it happened one time.
It happened twice.
Well, when the
regular season in 2018, we won every single game.
From the beginning to the end.
Oh, so you're disparaging the 2018
No, I'm not, because there's something about finishing the deal. Like that was our big thing in the Peach Bowl.
Did we get another freeze?
No. I'm here. Y'all hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah, I think that was our big thing in the Peach Bowl, just with the whole thing with Frost, with the whole thing with those seniors. It was finishing the deal. We've gotten so far. Why lose? Why sour the entire season on that one thing? But yeah, it's hard to go undefeated, especially now that we're in the Big 12. I don't expect us to win every game, but there is a way that we should brand ourselves in playing. There's a way that we strive to play when we were playing. We always wanted to be fast. We wanted to be physical, and when we wanted to be exciting. That's what UCF's brand, I think, is what it's turned into. We are a fun team to watch. We're explosive, and we're going to be that way on both sides of the ball. I think if we don't show that, that would be a poison to me. And I think that's the thing about it. Those guys have to keep carrying the mantle that, we set, and the guys even before me set. Like that's what I think a lot of the guys are irked about. Just from the former guys I talked to, they're not playing to the standard that we have set. And yes, there is a standard to the way you play UCF football. It's not wins. It's not how many championships you win. That is great. But there is a style that we play. There is a brand that we play that guys have came back and talked to me and say, even during the 0-12 year, dudes came back and said, you guys are not living up to the standard. You need to pick it up because you're embarrassing not only yourself, but us too as alumni. That is the same thing that we feel. And I think that's going to be my poison is just guys aren't playing, fast, physical, and exciting.
Okay. All right. For me this week, I won't have as much to say, although I will say this. Alan, you missed an opportunity last week because when you were out, I think I said 98-3. So, your margins that you're off is going to be less. So even though you did best last game, I feel like you've missed that opportunity to help yourself out for the rest of the season. So although we have another opportunity to put Josh in the doghouse since he missed this year, so he may be buying the Cheetos and the steak.
There we go.
For the season. So
110-1.
It's coming. So, for me, for my poison, I'm going to say this week is that Gus doesn't control the team enough. Defensively, he's kind of let the team do its own thing. I think Addie Williams is a first-time coach. He needs a steady hand to help support him and help him make decisions. So, telling Addie to go ahead and make sure that he stacks the box and make sure that he's consistent with that defensive effort and make sure that he's hammering that the guys don't bite on the fake on the inside. I think that they're a one-dimensional team. I think that shows in the stats that Alan shared earlier. They're going to run the ball. If they're going to run the ball, you can stack the box and get numbers. And if you get numbers, they're going to lose the game. So, I don't know why anybody else hasn't done that. And I'll say this. Hey, look, you've heard this, heard other teams say this against us. If you're not going to beat us through the air, we're going to stop you on the ground and make you beat us through the air. Let's do that to Oklahoma State. And if we don't do that, then it's going to be a long game at the bounce house. So that's my poison for the week. As far as my predictions are concerned, unlike Alan, my actual prediction will be that we win this game. I think our game. I'm gonna say this. I think this is going to go into the fourth quarter. And I think it's going to be a close game, as it has all season. I think the difference is, and my key to this game is that ability for John Rice to have enough bless you.
Thank you.
Confidence in his ability to make the difference in that plays down the stretch in the fourth quarter, because I do think it'll be a one-possession game for most of the game. And if it is a one-possession game for most of the game, then it's going to come down to us making one or two plays to make a difference in an individual possession. I think John Rice has got his groove back. So because of that, I'm going to say 32-28 UCF Knights. Let's go. All right. Now that we've talked about OSU and our poisons and our keys to the game, and Trey's yelled at people, let's go ahead and talk about our Big 12 recap, or super recap, by Alan this week.
Yep.
Alan.
Another good week in the Big 12. So started off Thursday night with a Thursday night football. We had Texas Tech, who we play later this year. They beat TCU 35-28. Obviously, we had our big win. Then Texas nearly got upset, but escaped with an overtime win over Kansas State, which I guess the committee thought was a quality loss for Kansas State and kept them in the top 25. Then our opponent this week, Oklahoma State, the final bedlam ever. Oklahoma State won a narrow one against DG and the Sooners, 27-24. Part of the reason why they're ranked 15 now. Then Houston did what we could not do, and they beat Baylor, beat them in overtime in a 1-point game. Houston gets their second Big 12 win against Baylor there. Then Kansas beat Iowa State 28-21. And then West Virginia knocked the doors off of BYU 37-7. So right now, as it stands, Cincinnati is in sole possession of last place in the conference. And then BYU and Houston both have 2 Big 12 wins, and then we have our 1, and we have 5 teams in the Big 12 that are ranked in the most recent playoff poll that just actually came out earlier tonight. Number 7, Texas. Number 15, Oklahoma State. Number 16, Kansas. Number 17, Oklahoma. And number 25, Kansas State. So 5 teams in the playoff poll right now.
How does that compare to the ACC?
As far as the ACC, I want to say it's better than the ACC. ACC obviously has number 4, Florida State. They're in a playoff spot. Number 11, Louisville. And number 24, UNC. So they have 3 ranked teams.
All right. So
the Big 12 is better than the ACC this year.
I know it is. And that's the point I was trying to make, right? Well, and they have been for a long time. You know, the thing that I think is lost on a lot of us is because we're in the Big 12 and because we have confidence in ourselves and, you know, who we should be. Got to remember, folks, we are in the 3rd. You know what? I'll say this differently. We are in the 2nd best league in college football. And here's the reason why I say that. The Pac is doing good this year. They're doing really well this year, right? Better than what they normally do.
Right.
The ACC has a couple of teams, usually Clemson and FSU, that are doing well. North Carolina's come on the last couple of years, but they've been crap since before that, right?
Yep.
By the way, last week's show got flagged by YouTube, just so you guys know. So for having adult words. So my efforts to keep this show clean have gone by the wayside in 1 week. So you know, as far as the Big Ten is concerned, you've got Michigan and Ohio State and nobody else. Everybody else sucks. And then you've got the SEC. So who does that leave? The Big 12 with 5 ranked teams this year, right? And the SEC. So I don't know if you've watched Iowa football, but if you need people to...
You need to find a way to fall asleep at night. That's what you need to watch.
Yeah, 100%. Like Iowa football. Oh, by the way, speaking of Big Ten football, you know, Matt Rule that took over at Nebraska?
Yeah.
He's doing a little better than old Frosty did. Just saying. Yeah. Just putting that out there. And that's not a shot at you, Trey. You only were there for 1 year. But
yeah, they have a winning record right now.
Yeah, they're making things happen. I'm bowl eligible. I'm pretty sure they'll be bowl eligible by year's end. But again, Big Ten football, other than Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, that's Big Ten football. Michigan State plays every once in a while, you know, and does fairly well.
Wisconsin,
everybody else sucks. Well, Wisconsin, I mean, they don't ever make the playoff. I mean, they make the championship game, but they fired their coach. The guy that got them there year after year after year after year after year, they fired their coach.
Crazy.
So again, even if you include Michigan State, which has not been anything since D'Antonio left, Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, I'd argue the Big 12's bottoms of that group is better than what the Big 10's is. And the Big 12, quite frankly, they beat each other up all the time, right? They had they all played each other in years past, where that didn't happen in other conferences. And on top of that, you know, it's any team in the Big 12 that can be that team that next year. So to me, the Big 12 is a better conference, is the 2nd best conference. Another hot take, 2 hot takes in 1 week. The Big 12 is the 2nd best conference in the country.
It has the 2nd most amount of ranked teams right now. So
100%.
And I think with the guys that we add, I think it's going to be very interesting next year. I think because a lot of those teams, the Pac-12 is done, so they kind of split up amongst everywhere. I think it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, Utah's a great addition. I mean,
yeah,
I think USC and Oregon go to the Big Ten, right? So is Utah and
Washington too, right?
Yeah, Washington. And Oregon. Yeah, they had better teams than we do as a whole, but yeah.
So
I think Washington takes a step back next year because they're going to lose all their players to the draft.
Washington hasn't been great. They have had a couple of great seasons since Michael Penix, who should be a UCF Knight. And I know you're smirking at that, but there was a lot of fire and smoke around UCF with Michael Penix, but we got out NIL'd for Washington. That's what happened, folks. We got out NIL'd, right? Could you imagine? Because he was the choice before JRP. So imagine Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Imagine them. Well, I don't know about Bo Nix because of the Gus ties. I think Bo Nix wanted to play. He did, but he wanted to play back in the SEC, right? But Michael Penix, obviously, I think he was at Indiana. So, he would have come to UCF, but we got out NIL'd. And so at the end of the day, right, I would say that power shift changes for the Big Ten after all of those teams. Oregon, Washington, they're consistently decent, but not.
The wild card is going to be USC. It's going to be which
USC shows up. So it's USC and Oregon being UCLA added there versus but UCLA hasn't played well.
No, I'm just saying like the teams that they're adding as a whole. Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm just saying the difference makers for them, the brands that they're bringing is Oregon and USC. Yeah. The Big 12 is bringing
Arizona, a bit like if you compare the two, I mean, it's not like Arizona State are that special or
that's where I was going with this.
Yeah.
So like we've got Utah coming in, which has perennially been good. I don't necessarily like them too much, but they've perennially been good, right? And then you've got Arizona State, and Colorado hasn't been very good for a long time. Arizona and Arizona State have not. I mean, Arizona has been okay at times, but has not been good for a long time. So that's where I said the pendulum may shift next year. But right now, I think that that the Big 12 in its current composition is the second best conference in college football. All right. So now that we've talked about that ad nauseum and argued, let's go ahead with the UCF Athletics sports update. So Alan, do you want to take that, or am I taking that in the absence of our very good friend Josh?
I'll take it in honor of Josh.
All right.
So we already talked about UCF basketball starting off the season 1-0. As far as the other Olympic sports, we have the men's soccer unfortunately lost in the Sun Belt Conference quarterfinals, 3-2 to South Carolina. And now they await their fate from the NCAA tournament gods, and the selection committee or the selection day is on November 13th. So we'll see where they get seated and, who they will face in that first round. But obviously they're a lock to make the tournament. Then UCF women's soccer, they lost in the Big 12 conference semis. So they did advance a round, but ultimately lost to number 7 BYU 4-1. And unfortunately did not qualify for the tournament. That was announced earlier this week. And then UCF women's volleyball lost back-to-back sets to Houston, dropping the first one 3-0 and the second one 3-1. And then they go on to to face off against BYU on Thursday.
Yeah, so with UCF men's soccer, it's unfortunate because it's 2 straight losses in a row, and they were number 1. So I don't want this to turn into the number 2 of the South Florida directionally challenged cows to our west. to none of our West, because you guys are in South Florida and I'm in North Florida, but to UCF's West. You know, so I don't want that to turn into that, but you know, they should still be seated pretty well. As far as women's soccer is concerned, we had a conversation going about this, and I said earlier on that the score differential was going to hurt us, but BYU is really, 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 really good and highly ranked. And then for UCF women's volleyball, I know it's Houston, but Houston is actually very highly ranked this year in volleyball as well, and BYU is perennially good. So it's going to be a tough matchup for UCF against BYU, but make sure you're supporting the teams. One thing we didn't say that happened this season is that UCF track actually handed us our first Big 12 championship, which is kind of crazy considering you know, the teams that we have in the conference. Texas, OU. Texas usually has a very, very good track team. And I wanted to shout that out because it was our first Big 12 championship, and we didn't even mention it on the show. And now we're mentioning it at the end of the show. I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the show. Sorry. That was a miss for me, but I wanted to make sure we shouted them out. And that, folks, with 2:05 left, takes us to the end of the show without Josh. So we've talked a lot more this time around than normal. And that's it. So I know you guys can tell that I'm trying to stretch this out because I was trying to make 2:07 in honor of Josh. But that being said, thank you guys both again and Josh for last week and spelling me while I had some work obligations. It was great to see a win. You know, I had to watch half of it after the fact, but it was good to see a win. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to another win this week against OSU. There's always a path, and I think there's a path. And, you know, one of you two is going to have to mumble randomly at the end of this when we say go Knights and charge on. So that being said, remember to like, subscribe, follow, go Knights, and
charge on.
You on, baby.
All right, who's mumbling?
Charge on.
Charge on.
No, one of you two have to like mumble, like
Charge
you know,
on.
like Josh does at the end of the show. And
Oh, you mean like,
you know,
I think you're taking care of that right now.
yeah, I think.